controversial Keystone Pipeline bill.
Charlie Hebdo, a satirical magazine, has been attacked.
News Talk 1150, KRMS.
9:39, closer to 9:40, so we'll call it that. 20 minutes away from 10 o'clock. Our phone lines are open now if you'd like to call in. I know some people have called in. They've got right in the middle of the break, and then we can't grab them. It's 302-7000, 302-7000. If you'd like to weigh in on the program this morning here on the Morning Magazine on KRMS. I am Kelly Ray. He is James Schultz on the other side of the phone line in St. Louis, talking about the Common Core, the new program that may be put in place from the Show Me Institute. And we'll see what, and there we go. Ask and ye shall receive, James. See, the phones have started. And hang on here, I lost you for a minute.
I'm here.
You're still there. Okay, there we go. All right, now we've got the caller here. I hit the wrong button there. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. This is Stacy Shore. Thank you for your show today. And I am one of the activists that James refers to that protested Common Core, as all of your listeners know. And my issue, a couple things I just want to clarify. The state did not adopt Common Core. That never happened. The governor unilaterally signed up for stimulus, which in turn adopted Common Core. That was one of the biggest pushes in our state, was that the legislature never got to vote, school boards never got a say. This initiative was foisted upon us and these local school districts that can't afford it by the governor. So to clarify that, the state did not adopt Common Core. That was one of the main reasons for pushback. The second point I just want to make is scores have plummeted to epic proportions in the last 2 years with districts across the state using the Common Core. So in saying that we're rewriting standards, I was also on a work group, and my work group was much, much different than the work group James was on. And I know the counterpoint to James's work group, which was math 6 through 12, an article just came out from one of the activist moms who was on that group, and basically they said that they're gonna give what they wrote and submitted, because they were the minority vote, is Common Core. And that's the same thing that happened in my group. We brought in the most renowned standards writer in the country to view our work and kind of help collaborate with us. And the majority, which were all DESI people that were in control of my group, they would not even let her speak. So Dr. Sandra Stotsky, who's renowned nationally, and we brought her in just to collaborate and look at our standards, she basically said our group, and what has happened in my work group, we turned back in basically the Common Core standards verbatim. So just so the audience understands, you know, we don't see it changing, because unfortunately the State Board of Ed gets the final say, and because it was so disjointed and disconnected, unfortunately we don't have a lot of hope that we'll get something different.
Jeff, what's your response to that? Or James, I'm sorry. James, what's your response to that?
Yeah, so 2 different points. So the first, that the caller is right in how the standards were adopted. I think it's just sort of semantics on when I say that the state adopted. I mean, so the governor and the commissioner of education and then the State Board of Education adopted them for Missouri. So she's right in that. On the second piece, in terms of what happened with the standards, I remember when Sandra Stotsky came in, I studied under Sandra Stotsky at the University of Arkansas. She was one of my professors, and so I was with her as this whole Common Core stuff got started, and so I'm very familiar with what happened. It is frustrating to people when the things don't go their way, but this is also sort of the problem with how democracy works. I mean, so we pushed for these new committees. The legislature put in place these committees, or established these committees. We created them through a democratic process, and then what came out at the end of the day is something that some people aren't going to be satisfied with. And I'll tell you that is the nature of the. Let me finish real quick. That's the nature of the way these things work. So the problem here now is that people are dissatisfied with the standards that have been created through the democratic process. And that's fine for people to be dissatisfied with them. I don't even think we need the standards in the first place. Mm-hmm. But the problem at the end of the day is that everybody just wants to get what they want, and doesn't or doesn't recognize that when you get what you want, oftentimes you're doing it at the expense of people who don't want what you want. So rather than impose standards centrally, this is why I've argued all along, instead of having centrally imposed standards, we should be fighting to get rid of state standards and expand school choice. That's the real way we should go, but if we're going to have this fight, at the end of the day, someone's going to be dissatisfied always.
Can I just interject one thing? When you talk about the democratic process when it comes to the Department of Education in Missouri, our group, Sunshine, requested any emails by and between the Department of Education and any group or entity that had anything to do with our particular work group. There were 6,500 emails that we could not get on our own because they were going to charge us over $5,000 to view those. However, we had a state rep that did get those for us. And what we found were that hundreds and hundreds of emails were sent out by DESE, getting people to sign up. They were recommending people to our work group, to all these different groups, to legislators. So for you to say that it was not a democratic process. DESE was not supposed to have any hand in it whatsoever, period. And we have documented proof that they steered the whole process from the very beginning. In fact, a member of the science work group just actually had another representative, Sunshine, request what happened between DESE and anybody that had anything to do with their work group. There are over 8,000 emails about to be turned over to this work group member. So the process is not democratic when it's not organic and it's not truly ran by the people. When
I think that we have a different definition of what democratic process is, because the standards were passed by the legislature. The legislature said who was going to appoint each of the people. So the legislature, different members of the legislature got to appoint members, different education committee groups got to appoint people, and DESE is the agency in the state that is tapped with overseeing our education system. So it would be ridiculous to assume that they wouldn't have any involvement here. So a democratic process doesn't mean it is completely a grassroots process and there's no involvement from the government. This was completely a democratic process because it was passed through the legislature. They appointed how it would happen, and then from there, the actors involved, which are the activists, the committees, the government agencies, all of them worked together to create these standards. So it was a democratic process. It's just one that in
it was
some
hijacked.
cases,
I disagree. It was not democratic. When a government agency can basically hijack the process, and we have proof of that, that is not democratic. They stacked the work groups, and we have proof of that. They organized. After our meetings were over, they were having what they called regroup sessions to make sure the people that were on their side got on track and made sure they drove the meetings
and
to
are
a
you telling
desired
me that there were
outcome.
no meetings? Gretchen Logue and the Missouri Education Watchdog organized no meetings on the opposite side? Of course they got together. Of course they got together. They're of like mind, and of course you got together with people who agree with you, because that's what we do.
We talked, but the thing is, at the end of the day, again, DESE is a governmental agency. We are we the people. There's a difference, James. There's a difference.
Here's the problem again, if I could just say one more time.
Sure, go ahead.
The problem is centrally imposed standards. That's the problem.
I don't disagree.
The problem is centrally imposed standards, and people on one side want their standards, and people on the other side want their standards, and there's no way we're going to satisfy everyone. And so when we have this fight, we're inviting conflict. We're inviting this type of thing. And this is why I've said from the very beginning, we shouldn't be fighting to get our standards. We should be fighting for no standards and for greater school choice. Until we get there, we're not going to solve this problem. We're always going to be having the same conflicts. In a few years, we're going to go through the same battle again.
We believe in local control, and I agree with you there that we have to take the chains off of and our administrators and allow the free market of education to reign again without the imposition of the Department of Education, who gets to write the rules, judge the rules, and then take away accreditation. I agree with you. We believe in local control, not so much school choice. We do believe in public education as long as there's the ability to be controlled locally. But that is not what is happening. And so, anyway, just to make sure people understand, under Common Core, test scores across the state in all subjects have plummeted over the last 2 years to epic proportions. It's not working.
Can I
I don't
weigh in
have
on
my
that for a moment?
standards.
I was
Yes.
going to, Stacy, I was going to ask you about that. You said that the scores have plummeted across the state. Do you have any local numbers as far as maybe what Camdenton, School of the Osage, how those scores have gone? Are they better or are they worse?
They're not better.
They're not better here.
Better. The thing is, again, everyone wants to blame the test and the disconnect, and James is right about the test. The test is very scary, and when you start to understand, it's not testing only academic things. I mean, things, intellectual, knowledge content. The tests and being adaptive are very dangerous because it can also do behavior. They can test behavior, attitudes, thoughts, and beliefs through an adaptive model. So the fact is, until we have the ability at the local level to even see what they're testing, we don't even get to see what our kids are being tested on. Our teachers don't. Our administrators don't. An independent, autonomous testing company has the ability to send us a link. When the test is over, the link expires, goes to them, and nobody even knows what our teachers are being evaluated on.
Stacy,
So when our teachers are being evaluated against this test, that's dangerous.
Stacy, let me ask, and I asked a similar question to James earlier. Are there programs in place? Let's say a student takes one of these tests on the computer and they fail. Let's say they get a 35 out of 100. I'm just throwing a number out there. Are there programs in place that can help tutor those students? And if so, are they state mandated or are they mandated from the local school district?
That's an excellent question, but here's the problem. All we know is they're performing below basic, but when we don't know what's even on the test, this is what teachers and administrators are screaming about. We don't know what little Johnny's failing at because no one can see the test questions, even after the test is taken. So how do you know how to remediate little Johnny when you don't even know if the tests are reflecting the standards adequately?
Now,
we have no idea.
Now this brings up something else, Stacy, that I would like to ask here. If little Johnny does bad, the teachers don't know what's on that test. The teachers get blindsided. So let's say that little Johnny and all of little Johnny's friends fail at this miserably. Who gets the blame? Is it the student or is it the educator?
The educator. And that's the problem right now, is that I am all for holding teachers accountable, 100% for that, okay? But the problem is it has to be fair. And so when the state can hold teachers accountable to a test that no one knows who drafts, no one knows what's on it, no one even understands what they're doing, but now we're going to hold a teacher accountable and a district's accreditation accountable to some bogus test, we're in trouble. I mean, that's where we're at. So I don't mean to there are a couple of points in listening that I think have to be clarified for the listeners, because I know they listen to me often too on this subject. And I just appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
You bet, Stacy. Thanks for joining us, James. Let's get it back to you. If this test is this new program that's out there, basically grading the teachers, grading the students, it sounds like anyway. What things are in place to help protect the teachers? Because wouldn't accreditation, isn't that what we're seeing in the St. Louis school district and some of those schools right now?
Well, there are problems with accreditation. I mean, there are a few points that I need to speak about here in terms of the tests. I mean, first off, there's really no evidence that these tests are collecting anything other than academic information. So the scary stuff that we were told they might be collecting, I've not seen any evidence of that. Now, what the tests are gathering, the information that's on them, I think that we should have and could need more transparency from the testing companies to the teachers, and I think part of that is just the rushed nature of this process when they implemented Common Core so quickly. But we've also been told by your caller that the test scores are plummeting, and I want your listeners to be clear about this. That does not mean students are getting dumber under Common Core. What it means is you have a different test with a different scale, right? And it's a higher scale, so fewer students do well. And we know that test scores aren't plummeting because we can look at the National Assessment of Educational Progress, which is a national test that we take every couple of years over time, and we see that under Common Core that the scores on that are not plummeting. So it's when you shift from one test to a different type of test, scores are going to go down, but that's because of what the test is measuring, not because students are getting dumber, right? So that just needs to be very clear. So, but that does have implications for accreditation, but the DESE, and I'm not an apologist for DESE, right? I'm not here to try to defend DESE, but the State Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has said that they will not make accreditation distinctions based on these new tests for a few years. So they are putting in place some safeguards so that the new tests don't punish districts.
Okay. Excuse me. James, we've got about 2 minutes left here. So, like you said, you're not going to please everybody. There's going to be ones over here that you're not going to please. There's going to be ones on the other side that are happy with it, and vice versa. Will it ever get to a point where a little bit from Common Core is taken, a little bit from the new program is taken, the good points and all melded together, where the majority of the people will be happy with what's been put out there?
Well, I think that the very nature of public education, the way that we do public education now, and your caller said that she supports public education. I want to be very clear that I also support public education. But the very nature of the system we have put in place, where the state tells you what you need to teach and tests you on it and assigns students to schools, that very system invites conflict. Because even if the local schools have control of what they get to teach, there are still going to be conflicts. The Cato Institute has what they call a battle map, where you can see all these different battles about local curriculum. In my local school district, there was a fight over banning Fahrenheit, Ray Bradbury's novel. I forget what it's called now, but we have these fights all the time. If we want to move away from these type of fights that we're going to have all the time, then what we need to do is move to a system of choice. So school choice isn't anti-public education. It's a different type of system.
And James, we're up against our final break. We're going to have to go. Hey, thanks for being with us this morning. Interesting. It's going to be going on for a while. We'll talk with you soon, okay?
Thank you very much.